Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So, I covered, well, I'm rendering it now, the one I recorded last night of Israel going into Lebanon, talking about that. And now, when I put the news on now, it's Iran launched 200 missiles to Israel. And I don't know if this is the first time that Iran has showed its hand, well, certainly in this scale. I just feel for, like I said in the last one, for the innocent people, that the people that don't want war, the people that don't want conflict, the people that don't care about bits of land but care about existence and life. Those innocent children, that where everyone's born blank and loving each other, and that when this happens, either side of a war, that hatred builds, that picture builds, and then that carries on. And just seeing these rockets going over Israel, I can't imagine, they have to go to the bunkers, sirens are going off. Imagine living like that. I mean, I get that's why they are attacking these terrorists, but I don't know, there will be, I know that the West has been calling for Israel to sort of try to broker the peace, as it were, as a nation that they can talk to and maybe reason with, whereas maybe they can't with say, Iran or Lebanon or other terrorist organisations like Hamas, where they... But now it's like, it's all out now. Iran's come out, obviously their dome is getting most of these, but will some go through? Will this then mean that Israel will want to now attack Iran? And then what will happen there? It seems like Benjamin Netanyahu is not, well, he's at the end of, I think, of his premiership, so he's just doing whatever he wants to do now, especially whereas America seems very weak and unable to, stop Israel. They've tried, but Biden doesn't seem very strong. And of course, it's an election time, so they don't really want to do too much to lose an election. So they're trying to keep things at status quo, but everyone's getting dragged into this. And whether there's reason for these or not, the poor innocent people on either side, whether it's the Lebanese, whether it's the Iranians, whether it's the Israelis, whether it's the Palestinians, those innocent people, and I can't see inside in someone's heart. God apparently can. He knows who those innocent people are. In war, is anyone that's not wearing a uniform, anyone that's not fighting is a non-combatant. And these people are, how are they going to sleep now at night? How are they going to do the things that they may have wanted to do? It's just like, I can't believe watching these things really. But yeah, I'm going to play it to you now. This Deborah Haynes, as these rockets are going over, you can hear the noise.
Allies were involved in this operation or are involved in this operation. We know that the US Central Command was saying earlier that it was aware that this was going to be happening, and so you can well imagine that the US was supporting Israel in terms of defending its sky. And the big question is what has got through and whether there are more waves yet to come.
As you say, an incredibly dangerous moment, because there is no clarity as yet about what has been intercepted and what has managed to get through. Deborah, I've just got a couple more lines. The Israeli army radio says that takeoffs and landings at all airports across Israel have halted, and that is obviously in response to these extraordinary scenes that we're seeing of these hundreds of missiles that have been launched on Israel. We've just lost Deborah Haynes. As you can imagine, an incredibly dangerous moment as sirens blare out, and you can see their live position there. A lot of concern about what is happening on the night sky, but let's just have a listen in. or you're here.
Okay, I'm just going to go to when they talked to her again. Deborah Haynes, when she came back with her bulletproof vest on. I'm not sure what that's going to do if a rocket comes, but I'm going to forward to that so you can hear this bit.
Giving us your thoughts. Let's go straight back to our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes, who joins us near the Israeli-Lebanese border. Deborah, I wonder what you're hearing at this moment, because it does still seem like the sirens are blaring across Israel. But before I let you tell us about where you are, I've just got some more lines that are coming in. We understand, based on senior Iranian officials who have told the Reuters news agency, they've said that the order to launch this missile attack on Israel was made by Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. So just some more lines coming in. We heard that the Revolutionary Guard saying that they were doing this in response to the killing of the leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, who was killed at the weekend. And we understand from the IDF that 200 missiles have been launched on Israel. Again, unclear whether all of them have been intercepted at this stage.
Yes, and also unclear whether it's all over. There could well be another wave. And actually, just while we've been standing here, we've been hearing small arms fire, probably machine gun fire in the distance over in that way, because at the same time as these strikes from Iran are being launched towards Israel, Israeli forces have launched their limited ground operation into Lebanon, which is still going on. And so you can imagine that there is still clearly fighting going on in that direction. In that direction was where the Iranian missiles came. And I mean, we've got some images, I think, that you've seen from a little bit earlier, where we saw the missiles streaking across the sky. We saw the intercepts going up, and then we saw the explosions when the intercepts were successful. And then we did see others that continued to move on. It's an incredibly difficult operation to try to intercept ballistic missiles anyway, let alone some 200 of them, as you were just saying. It's an operation that clearly Israel would most likely have needed its allies' support to help it with. And if it is still going on, and if, as Israel has said in its message that it put out, that the Iranian attack is continuing, then there could yet be more tests to come, and the night might not yet be over.
Deborah, I'm just going to keep you there and bring in our Dominic Waghorn, who is in Washington. And we understand that President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris are monitoring the current developments and Iran's attack on Israel from the White House Situation Room. President Biden has said that the United States is prepared to help Israel defend against these attacks and protect American personnel in the region. Let's bring in Dominic Waghorn, who is in Washington. I mean, Don, these are extraordinary developments and scenes, and a very dangerous moment for this region. We are now effectively seeing a confrontation, a very direct confrontation between Iran and Israel. We've also heard that the supreme leader, Iran's supreme leader himself, ordered this, and he said that we are ready for any kind of retaliation from Israel.
Yes, it's a very, very grave moment for the Middle East, but also I think for the world, and you have to wonder what happens next. We obviously cast our minds back to April when Iran launched its first direct attack on Israel. And that was the first time Iran had ever attacked Israel directly, although it has obviously sponsored any number of proxy attacks and allies of Iran to attack Israel in different ways, not only in Israel, but also outside of Israel. But that was the first time that Iran directly attacked Israel. And back then, it felt almost ritualistic. It was in response to an Israeli attack on its consulate building in Damascus, where a number of assassinations were carried out by Israel. But there was a sense then that the Iranians were saying to Israel, but also to Israel's American patrons and supporters and defenders, that we have to do this. We have to carry this out, this attack, in response to what you've done, but we don't want it to lead to all-out war. And therefore, there was an understanding that not just Israel, but America, Britain, and other allies of Israel, but also Jordan, would repel that attack and see it coming. And what we saw then was over 100 drones being fired, I think 30 cruise missiles, and I think it was around 120 of what we think we're seeing now being fired at Israel, 120 ballistic missiles. Now, most of those were either shot down or intercepted, many of them before they reached Israel, because Israel and its allies saw that attack coming, and the ones that did get through into Israel didn't do an awful lot of damage. Now, this is very different this time, because these are ballistic missiles, and well-sourced reports claim that these attacks are happening in two waves: 120 missiles fired, and then 15 minutes later, another 120 ballistic missiles. Ballistic missiles take, I think, around 12 minutes to get from launch to moment of impact. They're much harder to anticipate, and the Iranians simply have not given Israel and its backers and its defenders enough time to prepare for this, like they did back in April. So this is a much more aggressive attack by Iran. It may be fewer in number of rockets and projectiles fired at Israel, but the nature of this attack is a very different kind of attack. It's a deliberate attack in anger against Israel. It's in response, obviously, to the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah, which I think we have to say is was one of Iran's closest allies, a man who represented so much of what they were trying to achieve in the region. His assassination being avenged now by this unprecedented attack. And ahead of the attack, we had the Americans sounding the alarm, saying they were sending their diplomats in Jerusalem to the shelters, saying that they saw these missiles being prepared for launch, and warning Iran not to fire them. Now, well-placed well-sourced American journalists are saying that the Israelis told the Americans to sound the alarm, to send a warning to Iran not to carry out this attack, and wanted to send a clear message to Iran, which was, if you go ahead with this ballistic missile attack, we will come after you. We won't respond in a token way like we did back in April, where the Israelis simply, I think, attacked a number of air defense systems near Natanz in Iran. This time, the Israelis have made it very clear they will respond in force, and they expect the Americans to help them do so. And according to the New York Times, Thomas Friedman's article, which was written shortly before this attack happened, his understanding from the Israelis is that they've told the Iranians they will come after their nuclear weapons program. They warned them they will go after their nuclear weapons program if these missiles are launched, and they expect the Americans to support them. So I think what we're looking at potentially here is a ballistic missile war. That is entirely exactly what the Americans have tried to avoid by sending huge numbers of military materiel and forces to the region. They were trying to warn the Iranians, don't get involved in this escalating conflict between Hezbollah and Israel. Sit this one out. It looks as though the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khamenei in Tehran, has decided to do the opposite, to throw the weight of his ballistic missile arsenal into this war, with, I think, consequences that are dire and grave for the region and rather hard to predict at the moment.
Yeah, Dom, as you were saying earlier, you and I were both in Israel when that attack, the ballistic missiles, the cruise missiles, the drones were launched from Iran to Israel. As you say, it was choreographed. It was in the early hours of the morning. The United States and Israel, the UK.
Right, so they're going on about this. I mean, I like how it's being framed as like. I like how it's being framed how Iran, you should sit out this one, you shouldn't get involved. Yeah, I mean, I get it. But, that was said also to Israel as well, that they were told as well. I know from the argument of, from the West's view is that Israel, the good guys here and whatever, and what the others are terrorists, and I get that. But Israel have been doing things as well, like how they've been operating their war in Gaza hasn't been, I would say, to the Western standard or historic standard, or maybe because we didn't have all these mobile devices, we don't know what was going on. But certainly there's been flagrations of international law You know, we're turning off the water and electricity and stuff like that, which is quite evident. The hitting of hospitals and stuff, but also the lack of restraint, the lack of trying to get the hostages deals and stuff like that. And I'm not just picking on one side. Obviously, we all know that terrorists, you don't need to really talk about terrorists. We know terrorists is bad and it's wrong. It's against international law, and no one wants terrorists, but you expect states to be better than terrorists. Not trying to equate the two there, but saying that it's obvious you don't need to say, you know, that's quite clear. But it's interesting how the media and the West are just trying to put this on. Well, Iran, you stay out of this. Well, yeah, but you expect them to stay out of it? Of course that's not going to happen. You couldn't control Israel. You wanted to control Iran now as well. And then at the end of this, it'll I mean, maybe they did start all this by, you know, Iran by funding Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis and etc. And so therefore maybe they are to blame, but it's just all of that stuff is political, isn't it? And wars often are not black and white, and they're often not right and wrong, and there's, you know, like good guy and bad guy. There's usually, like, I mean, I suppose from looking at my perspective of a different system, they're all wrong, because at the end of the day they're just killing human beings and just fighting over bits of land and who is control of it and whose ideology and culture you're going to follow. Which, you know, the main thing should be we're all human beings and we should live together and find a better way, but maybe I'm a bit idealistic on that. So this was before, I'm going to play now, which was about, just to give the other side of it, which I thought was quite interesting. That's this is a colour now that we hear a lot before, and he's talking about, you know, the justification for what's going on. You know, obviously, you know, if your country's being attacked all the time by these terrorists, obviously then you have the legitimate, under the system that we live in, to respond and to try and protect your people, because obviously they can't just stand by and do nothing. I just wish there was a world where we didn't have to have wars, but I guess unfortunately we live in this system where when one side decides to hate you so much that they want to eradicate you from existence, and then, you know, and then continuously send terrorists and stuff over. But of course the problem is this sort of, all this sort of hatred from both sides, whether it's like justified or not, or it's retaliation or it's defence or whatever, that level, it infiltrates in our children's mind, and then when they grow up to be adults, they carry on that. That's my worry about all of this, and all people watching this.
This is your mission. We will employ all that is needed. Your forces, other forces, from the air, from the sea, and also from the land.
The land attack follows days of punishing airstrikes across Lebanon, including the capital, Beirut. The targets have been Hezbollah commanders right up to its leader. But they've also devastated whole communities, with many people dead and wounded, and hundreds...
I think we heard that yesterday, no? Oh yeah, here's the bit. I don't think we played this bit.
We're in the Middle East, Israel cannot reach. There's nowhere we will not go to protect our people and protect our country. With every passing moment, the regime is bringing you, the noble Persian people, closer to the abyss.
But as Israel pounds its enemies, its allies are growing increasingly alarmed at the potential for the whole region to descend into all-out war. Deborah Haynes, Sky News, near Israel's border with Lebanon.
Well, earlier my colleague Wilfred Frost talked to the Israeli military spokesperson Colonel Peter Lerner. He explained that Israel has restricted mass gatherings in northern Israel to protect citizens. We pressed him on how far into Lebanon Israel is prepared to go with its ground operation.
You've announced that your incursion into Lebanon will be limited, targeted and localised. How are you going to ensure that that is the case?
I think it's important to add on those three words a very important context of the border area. That is where we're currently operating.
Charismatic.
Concerned of the infrastructure, the attack infrastructure that Hezbollah has established across the frontier from east to west. So we are currently operating in order to negate, destroy, and dismantle that infrastructure that has been that they've built over the last years. Now, that infrastructure, when I'm talking about, I think to make it into much more simple and tangible terms, it's staging grounds. It's places where the terrorists, Hezbollah terrorists from the Radwan force, which is their special forces, which are highly equipped, which have been trained by Iran, gather, arm themselves. They go into a house, go into a tunnel, and then run in a tunnel and go to close proximity in order to breach into the border, into the communities.
How far into Lebanon do you plan to go? There was some reports that people needed to be evacuated north of the Litani River, as far as the Awami River. Have you heard of that? Is that something that you would advise people in Lebanon to do, or is there no need because of the more localized, targeted incursion that you're describing?
So the explicit instructions of evacuation have taken place in and around the border area, primarily. Of course, people in the south, there is a challenge there and a threat there, because that is I would say, the hotbed and the stronghold of Hezbollah. That is where they are most traditionally stronger, and they have been building their capabilities specifically there, but not only there, in other places, also in Beirut and also in eastern Lebanon as well.
We're going to be talking to...
Right, so it's the morning now. I didn't get a chance to post this, so I'm just adding this into it, because now you can see the after effect of this. And it seems like a few of them did get through, most of them didn't get through. It looks like the majority of them were intercepted. They didn't seem like very big explosions when they hit the ground. So it looks like this was more like a warning type thing. I know they didn't give any warning like they did in April. Well, unless these rockets aren't that very big, and they seem to have landed mostly in a field from the pictures that I saw. But I'm sure they did hit other areas. It doesn't seem like there's many or any casualties, which is lucky for Israeli citizens. But obviously what Iran is doing, and I guess they claim to be an Islamic country, when they find these rockets, what intelligence do they have to where they're going? Maybe they did pick a field, I don't know, for them to land in, if you can control it that much. But the fact that they're launching rockets into another person's country in the middle of the night, causing all this fear, I just don't know. I know you could pick sides if you really wanted to, like America has done, because I see their press and the UK are condemning this escalation by Iran. But it's strange that when Israel used the pagers, if that was them, there was no use of the words, Israel escalating the system by doing this. I guess because they can get around it by saying, well, no, we're the good guys. We're getting rid of the terrorists. But you killed innocent people as well. And, when Israel went into Lebanon, there was no condemning that for escalation, or it was a bit like when the October the 7th, how you can pick a start time and say this is where things started. Whereas, there's history of things between Israel and Palestine and the West for generations before that. These things tend to build up over time, cause and effect, as it were. And now, of course, Israel is saying that they're going to retaliate. Iran is saying, that's it, we don't really want to retaliate. It's like a really silly sort of game of I'm going to show you how strong I am by throwing some missiles at you, but not to really kill anyone, but just to show you how powerful I am. And don't do that again. And then the other side say, yeah, well, you're going to pay. And these are the people that are in charge. Anyway, here are these bits that I saved for you. One's this morning, one was last night.
Let's go straight now to our Special correspondent Alex Crawford, who is in southern Lebanon for us. Alex, I saw you leave this morning as things developed overnight, and we saw Israel plan to launch that incursion. Just tell us, it's been a dramatic night of Iran launching missiles on Israel, but of course, this ground operation by Israel also continues.
Yeah, and I don't think it's too much of a coincidence that on the same day that Israel announced it was doing this ground invasion, it's being seen very much as a ground invasion by people in Lebanon, including those Hezbollah supporters, but also ordinary Lebanese people and the Lebanese government. I don't think it's a coincidence that at the start of the day we heard about the Israeli troops moving inside Lebanon, and by the end of the day Iran was attacking Israel and linking it to its actions in or against Hezbollah and inside Lebanon. There's no doubt that Hezbollah has taken an absolute hit over the last 2 weeks, quite an extraordinary sequence of events in just 2 weeks. They've had the booby trap, pager and radio explosions, a lot of their senior commanders hit, assassinations and attacks in the center of Beirut as well as in the suburbs of Beirut, and culminating in taking out their leader, a close friend of the Iranian leadership. So they have really been knocked back and caught in the crossfire. There have been tens of thousands of people, civilians killed, mothers, children killed, lots of injuries, and a huge displacement problem, the biggest in Lebanon's history. About 1 million people on the run looking for shelter. And we've been just hearing more explosions coming here in the south of Lebanon just in the last few minutes before we came to air. So civilians are in the crossfire, and there's no doubt that somehow this could possibly be connected. Have a look at what we found out today. South Lebanon is being pounded by Israeli forces from the air. These pictures provided by the Israeli military show hit after hit after hit, apparently targeting Hezbollah tunnels and infrastructure, and some attacks are clearly in villages and communities. In other pictures filmed by independent media, what looks like white phosphorus is being used, a chemical substance banned in residential areas under international law and which the Lebanese government has repeatedly criticized. The southern city of Tyre has turned into a virtual ghost town, empty streets and shuttered shops, with many people either fleeing the city altogether or staying inside their homes. Only in part of the old town do we find some small groups, residents who refuse to be forced out of their homes and livelihoods. Like Elias Barber, whose business building small boats has been in the family for generations.
No matter what they do, we won't leave. This is my business. Everything we have is here, and we're not going to leave it.
People are scared, but won't budge. Leaving here would be like ripping my heart out of my body, this woman told me. In the southern village of Ain el-Dalab, they buried 13 of their friends and relatives, the second day of mass funerals. Mothers and 2 children are among those they said goodbye to this time. The villagers are in shock after the worst tragedy to hit their community in decades. 45 of them were killed in the most deadly single Israeli strike in nearly a year. They're still conducting mass funerals for those who were killed in the lead-up to this point, and now with the ground invasion, they're very much fearing that there's going to be a lot more of these in the days and weeks to come. The community is devastated.
Everyone just wants this to stop, to end. It's our land, it's our land, it's our home, it's our people. We just want to live in peace. That's what we want. That's it. They should not attack any kilometer of our land. It's ours.
Noor, too, can't believe what's happening. What have these innocent people done, she says? Why are they doing this to us? They're killing whole families. She goes on, this is like Gaza too, and the whole world is watching. A short distance away, another fresh Israeli attack hours earlier. This time a Fatah leader was on the Israeli kill list.
in Lebanon's largest Palestinian refugee camp. He survived, but 6 others didn't, including 3 children, according to the Lebanese state news agency. They're armed here and keen to show they're ready to fight, with Israel saying its special forces are carrying out operations inside the country that gave them sanctuary. The Israeli military has left a trail of devastation in the southern suburbs of the Lebanese capital, and to many these scenes are horribly reminiscent of those in Gaza, which the Hezbollah militant group has always insisted its attacks on Israel are linked to. But there are families mourning across Lebanon, many totally unconnected with the militant group. They're bereft, but also furious at what they see as Israel's violation of the country's sovereignty and the powerlessness of the international community to stop it.
Alex, I just wanted to pick up on some of the things that were raised in your report, including, Israel has said that these operations will be limited in scope and geography. They've reassured the United States that they will ensure that this is short, sharp, and fast. But there must be growing concern in southern Lebanon tonight that this could escalate. The Israelis have found themselves in this position before in 1982, and there must be concern that this could turn into a much bigger conflict.
They're a peak concern, really, because over the past few weeks and indeed months, many people, many Lebanese government ministers have learned that not an awful lot of what Israel says, Israel sticks to. They believe that certainly a number of government ministers have said that they thought they had a deal. They thought they had managed to convince Hezbollah to agree to a ceasefire just before the Israeli Prime Minister flew to New York. And they believed that Benjamin Netanyahu had also agreed to that ceasefire. And judging by the briefings from the US State Department at that time, around about the same time, they also believed it. And yet that set off a chain of events, including the assassination of the Hezbollah leader, which has led to this point as well. They have managed to rein in, the government ministers have managed to rein in Hezbollah up until now. And now there'll be a lot of diplomatic goings-on behind the scenes to try and keep Iran and Israel reined in. But neither Iran or Israel appear to be ready to stop battling against each other. So the signs do not look good at all right now.
I like Alex Crawford because she gave quite a balanced view there. Now this morning.
Almost all of the nearly 200 missiles that Iran poured down on Israel were intercepted. Here in America, the Pentagon says it is consulting Israel as it plots its next move in response to the missile attacks from Iran, while diplomats prepare to meet here in New York at the United Nations. Iran's attack came hours after Israeli forces invaded Lebanon. More than 1,000 people have been killed here in the past 2 weeks. Good morning then from Beirut. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Iran has made a big mistake and will pay for it. He vowed revenge after Iran launched nearly 200 missiles at Israel. Nearly all of them were intercepted, and the only reported casualty is a Palestinian in the occupied West Bank. Our first report is from our Middle East correspondent, Alistair Bunkle.
The warning that Iran was preparing to launch ballistic missiles at Israel came only hours before the attack itself. In Tel Aviv, a constant streak of interceptions filled the night sky as waves of missiles came in. Cars stopped by the side of the road as sirens sounded, and people took shelter where they could.
This has felt like a big attack because of the volume of incoming missiles, but the fact it's been in numerous waves as well. It hasn't just been a one-off attack.
Millions went to their safe rooms across central Israel under orders from the military. As Israel's Security Cabinet was meeting in an underground bunker, Jerusalem was also under attack. Loud booms could be heard across the city.
Iran made a major mistake this evening, and it will pay for it. The regime in Iran just doesn't understand our determination to defend ourselves and our determination to retaliate to our enemies.
A shower of missiles came down on or near the Nevatim air base in southern Israel. The IDF hasn't said whether there was any damage. In Gedera, south of Tel Aviv, a school was hit, leaving large craters. No one was injured. In Gaza, Palestinians cheered and whistled as the missiles came in towards Israel. The only person reported killed was a Palestinian near Jericho in the West Bank. Falling debris started fires in the area. Minutes before Iran's barrage, 6 people were killed and 9 wounded in a terror attack in Jaffa on the edge of Tel Aviv. 2 gunmen reportedly opened fire near a tram station.
We are conducting this warfare in several arenas. This was very severe what just happened. Now there will be repercussions, and we will take action whenever we choose to, wherever we choose to.
Israeli Defense Force.
Hezbollah has also fired missiles into Israel today. One landed on a main highway close to Tel Aviv. 3 people were injured. We saw the military clearing the debris as we drove through on our way north. The strike shows that Hezbollah is still capable of firing long-range weapons, and it has now been joined by its powerful backer, Iran. For a long time, many had been warning that this war could spiral out of control. It now looks like that is what's happening. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News in Israel.
Let's just take a look at some of the damage caused by this Iranian attack on Israel. And Israel says Iran fired almost 200 missiles into its territories. Footage shows missiles flying over Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and the Israel-Lebanon border, and much more. Our data and forensics team has identified and geolocated footage from around the country, including this, which shows missiles landing near Ayalon Mall in Tel Aviv. Footage also shows missiles landing at or near the Nevatim air base south of the occupied West Bank, as well as the Shalavor Shabbat Gedera school and Herzliya on the northern outskirts of Tel Aviv. Now, in a separate incident, 6 people were killed and 10 were wounded in a shooting and knife attack in the Israeli coastal city of Jaffa. 2 men are reported to have shot and stabbed passengers on a tram and then opened fire on passers-by after getting off. The attackers were killed by security forces. Well, Israel has carried out more airstrikes here in Beirut overnight. More than 1,000 people have been killed in Lebanon in the past 2 weeks, and hundreds of thousands have been forced to flee their homes because of the Israeli offensive against Hezbollah. From southern Lebanon, our special correspondent, Alex Crawford, has this report.
South Lebanon is being pounded.
I'm just going to play the same one now. It's funny how they're changing their figures. Hundreds of thousands or 1 million? Which is it? It's a big difference. See, there's a problem with the media. They tend to like to, stoke it up like there were more than one. There was loads of waves. I think it was only 2 waves, no? Because they're not lying, it's just there. It's full of hyperbole. But imagine, and then a shooting in Jaffa actually ironically killed more than Iran's 200 missiles by the sounds of it. And people in Palestine cheering for rockets going over. I get it that people, there's a reason why people may do that, because they feel that they're being attacked and someone's coming to their rescue, but we're not thinking about the innocent people. Like, the situation that's happening to you is going to happen to someone else. Why would you want that? That's the problem with humanity. Often, the hypocrisy of it is that often, they will say, oh, this is bad happening to me, but they're not worried about the same thing happening to somebody else. History is meant to teach us these things. Never shall we forget, but it seems like it doesn't work because wars just keep coming and going. And over what? We can't learn to live with each other, That there are some individuals, terrorists or world leaders, that will see past humanity, and their goal is that they want power, they want control, they want land, they want greed, they want possession, all those things. And unfortunately that spalls down to humanity as well, because that's what we're taught. And that's what allows these things to take place. I mean, imagine if you were Israeli or Lebanese or Iranian. If Israel are going to attack now, I expect the next pursuit troop will be doing will be Israel firing rockets into Iran, if they can do that. Or a Palestinian. Imagine if you're these people, or any place where there's conflict. I worry about my kids in a place where there's no war. Imagine how the parents worry about their kids in a war-torn place, where there's lack of food, where there's lack of resources and things. Why do we live like this? It doesn't matter which side you come down on, whether there's a right and wrong of it, whether one side is trying to, it's got more legitimacy than the other. I'm not trying to take that away from anything. I know in the system we live in, that's always going to be there, and countries are always going to back their friends and all that kind of stuff, and people are as well. But looking at it as a bigger picture of, if you were looking from space, if you were an alien race looking at this one set of humans killing another set of humans, and one clapping and one helping, and one, America helping Israel and Iran helping, Lebanon. I mean, come on. I don't know. Take care, take it, God bless, and peace.